Welcome to another episode of Crawfordsville Connection, the City of Crawfordsville's weekly podcast that comes out every Monday morning. I'm your host, Sarah Summer, and I'm joined in the studio every week with Mayor Todd Barton to keep our community up to date on current events, city workings, and to hear from community members on a variety of topics. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Welcome back to another episode of Crawfordsville Connection. I'm your host, Sarah Summer, and today I'm joined in the studio by Mayor Todd Barton.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good. And with us today, we have Brandy Allen and Tom Klein, and we are going to talk about the Purple Heart Parkway extension.
We got the gang all here.
Yes.
Everybody who knows about this is here.
Everybody with all the information.
Yep.
Before we get started talking about Purple Heart Parkway, Mayor, do you have any announcements?
I just want to let people know I have a community forum scheduled for December 11th from 5 to 6 p.m. in the mayor's office.
Yes.
So last one of the year.
It is.
If something's on your mind, stop by and see me.
Yeah. This is your opportunity to come ask questions, give feedback.
Yeah, you never know. Like, there may be a lot of people show up, and last month, I will tell you, there was nobody. So you never know.
You never know. People might be
it all
burning
depends
with
on what's
questions
on,
now.
Yeah, what's on people's minds and
Yes.
what's going on. And I know this is a busy time of the year, but 5 to 6 p.m. on the 11th, if you have anything you want to talk about.
Awesome. Well, before we get started with Purple Heart Parkway, Brandy, do you want to just give an overview of who you are? And Tom, you can do the same.
I'm Brandy Allen, the Director of Operations and Community Development for the City of Crawfordsville, formerly the Planning Director, but I've been in this role. I keep saying it's new, but it's been 2 years now. So
2 years goes fast, doesn't
Yeah.
it? And Tom.
I'm Tom Klein. I'm the County Administrator, so I've been here since the fall of 2020. A lot of people ask what the County Administrator does, and I liken it to a school superintendent. So I work for the County Commissioners, and I kind of do the same duties as a school superintendent would do, which is manage the day-to-day operations for the county and implement the policies of the commissioners.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, let's just jump right into Purple Heart Parkway. If you could give a project overview of what is, people know Purple Heart Parkway is by Walmart, but what is the extension project? And we've highlighted a little bit on our general updates, but we're gonna dive in today.
Yeah, we talk about it in every general update, and this is the progress. This is where we're at. But today, since it's open, we thought we would do a deeper dive. The existing Purple Heart Parkway prior to this was from 231 to State Road 47. And those who've been around a while remember that when Walmart was built, there was a road just in front of Walmart, and it stopped basically at the Walmart entrance, the furthest one to the west. And several years ago, we connected that all the way to 47. The name Purple Heart Parkway, we had, I guess it really wasn't a contest, but we asked for input from several organizations, and that one came through the VFW and the American Legion, and that's the one we chose. So Purple Heart Parkway has been in existence there for a few years now. I think by all accounts has been very well received and well utilized. There's a lot of traffic on that road, and it really did open that area up. So as things progressed and we saw where things were headed, we decided that we should try to extend it further and take it from US 231 over to Ladoga Road.
Awesome.
And that's the extension we're talking about.
And why is this important to our community?
Well, for several reasons. There's a lot of growth on the south side, and this is really about getting out ahead of things and being proactive instead of reactive because, in the past, a lot of our roads and development happened after somebody bought property and started building something. We had to work around it, and I always say things don't line up, things don't match up. It's kind of all over the place, and we didn't want that to happen. So this will really kind of set the stage for the future. The road is in place, and growth can happen around the road, and it does open up about 1,000 acres for development on the south side that we need for various things: retail that everybody wants, housing that we need. Go down the list. There's a lot of things can happen there.
So the extension connects US 231 and Ladoga Road. About how far is that? What is the length of this extension? And can you talk a little bit about some of the specific design features? We touched a little bit on the speed limit, what goes into, creating some of those things and making this project happen.
Sure. The road is 1.26 miles long in the connection, or basically the extension from US 231 over to Ladoga Road. It's designed as just a 2-lane road, but there is a trail along the north side of this, which will connect the length of that path, which is really cool because it will open it up to future connections. Then there's a possibility we could maybe look into connecting north to the parks, and it opens up an area of the community that we don't currently have connections. Lots of important reasons for that, not the least of which would be, residents on that side of town, better access to shopping and grocery and those kind of things. So that's a really cool feature that we were really excited to incorporate there. As you mentioned, we did discuss the speed limit. Both the city and the county have created a 30 mile per hour speed limit for their sections of it. That's going to feel pretty slow on a brand new smooth road out in the middle of nowhere, but it is not a racetrack, and there will likely be things starting to pop up there pretty soon. So 30 mile an hour is what we felt was best for that section of road.
Yeah, we felt like if we made it higher, we would just have to come back and lower it.
Right.
So let's just start at 30. There will be growth happen there fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you say that this complements previous development in our community?
We've grown to the south. I mean, everybody knows that, and I think that perplexes a lot of people. But this really kind of builds on what's already happened there, I think, like I said, in a proactive way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sets the stage and puts the infrastructure in place because it's not only a road and the trail, like Brandy mentioned, there's sewer and water woven into this as well. So we've just really never been in that situation in this community. We've always been very reactive, and something's coming, and now we have to work around it and try to figure it out. This puts us out ahead of the curve and really putting that infrastructure in place and really sets the stage, if you will, for the retail. I'll use that as an example, and the housing that people want. And there's a lot of retail interest there. And this road it's the linchpin for all that happening. You have to have this in place for those things to occur.
Yeah, it definitely helps address some of those economic needs in our community. We've talked about that in great detail for a while now, and this really just makes the opportunity a reality.
It does. It puts it in place. It sets the stage, like I said.
Yeah. And how do you think this could maybe help regional growth?
Well, I think that, as the mayor mentioned, this road opens up a lot of new area for development. Plus, we're working on a south side corridor study where the road may be able to be extended to the east, which would connect to Comfort Drive and then also New Core Road. So that whole area gives it that regional plan of additional development in the area.
Yeah. And this has been a collaboration between the city and the county. It's been a joint effort. And Mayor, I know you've spoken about this before. Our city and county officials work really well together. There's a ton of collaboration in everything that we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, neither one of us could have really done this easily on our own. And so it really did take that shared vision and that shared work. It's a joint project. So you've had, and it's not just as simple as saying the city and the county. I mean, on each side, you have multiple boards and commissions and groups working.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to coordinate there. But this is a shining example of how I think we do things right in this community, coming together to make projects like this happen, because at the end of the day, it's about moving the community forward and putting the things in place we need. And we'll figure out the lines and where we pay and who's paying what. And that's easy to figure out if you just have a spirit of cooperation.
Well, speaking of, funding and paying for things, do you want to talk a little bit about the funding for this project and how that gets broken down?
I'll let the people who actually paid the bills do that.
Yeah, sure. So the project was about a $5.4 million construction project. We also had design, but we received a state grant through the READY grant program. You probably have heard mention that a few times in this podcast. And so that is being used first. And then and it's about $2 million, and that comes off the top. And then the remaining amount then is split between the city and the county at 50%. The county share, we're using ARP, American Rescue Plan funds for our share. But this has been, as the mayor mentioned, this has been a great project of the city and county working together. This project went really fast from deciding we wanted to do it to hiring an engineer to purchasing right away, which I think we thought might take the longest, which it did take quite some time, but still doing design at the same time that we had right away to get it done before the end of the year is quite remarkable.
That's went from an idea to a reality in a relatively short time.
Well, yeah, think about it in comparison to Skank Road.
Yes, yes. Very
we've-
different funding structure and a very different timeline.
Yeah, we've talked about how when we do this, in-house funding, you can move projects along much, much faster.
Yes, indeed. And that was important in this case because this is like I said, the linchpin to a lot of development. Time is of the essence here. We have to make this happen. We're dealing in real time, but we're thinking of the future. And, right now there's growth happening. If you wait another 3 or 4 years, that might not be the case.
Right.
And you might miss the mark. And we've done that many, many times in this community. So timing was very important here, and doing it this way allowed us to move very quickly.
Wonderful. So we've talked a little bit about, there's potential for retail, potential for housing. When can people start to expect to see things happening?
Well, the housing you're already seeing south of there with Arbor, right?
Right.
We've talked about that quite a bit. There's housing proposed along this. I think you'll start to see all that you'll start to see things happen next spring and summer, it's all the ground. It's funny because people will say, well, somebody should buy that ground and think about doing something. Yeah, you're really late to the party there because all that ground's already been sold or under contract.
Mhm.
I think almost the entire length of this roadway.
Wow.
And so
Due to the project, too.
due to the project, right? So there are already developers way ahead of that, thinking ahead and what they're going to do. So I would really say, next spring and summer is when you'll really start to see some things happen. And I think you'll hear some announcements on the retail side, in the coming months as well. There's several deals out there hanging in the balance right now that probably will get announced, by mid-year next year.
That's awesome. I think, we see that all the time. People are saying, we don't have enough of this. And this is, part of that answer. And it's not going to address everybody's needs. And, there will still be the folks who say, there's nothing here.
Well, yeah. And I think part of it too, I mean, we will get feedback. We do get feedback that, we should just build a grocery store on the east side instead of on the south side. I totally understand that. I totally agree with what you're saying. But retailers and the people putting the money into it don't see it that way.
Right.
They want to be in that proximity close to those other big box retailers. That's their the way they operate, and that's the way they're going to make their decisions. So knowing that, now we're several years into this, knowing that that's how they function, we have to set the table in a manner that will bring them to the table. Because if we try to force them to do things the way we see it here, spoiler alert, it doesn't work. We've tried. They're just going to ignore us and go right down the road to some place that will do what they need done.
Yeah. Again, this is a reminder for people. Mayor, you and, Tom, you guys don't get to wave your magic wand and say, okay, we're going to put this here today and we're going to bring one of these here.
We wish. That'd be fun if we could do that.
Make things easier too, right?
A whole lot easier. Yeah.
Well, we'll see some of these new businesses, retail and housing popping up in the short term. But what would you say the long-term impact is here for our community? What does this do for our community's growth and the longevity of our community?
Well, increased assessed value, new jobs, new opportunities. It creates an additional energy for the city and the county, which is important for us to continue to attract people to come to live in our county and the city.
And we're increasingly thinking about, growth in a different way. Like if you look at what's happening in surrounding counties, we talk about this, like what's happening in Boone County, right, with the growth there, and the Indy metro area and Lafayette. I mean, all those things combined, we recognize that there will be a fair number of people who may wish to commute, who might want to live here and might be working in one of those areas on top of the jobs that we have open. This kind of starts to really put us in a good position to make some connections around the city that would make it much easier for somebody to commute from elsewhere and live here. Right now, that's not necessarily that appealing. If you think about coming across 32 and then coming down through the downtown and the railroad crossing and all those things you have to deal with in the downtown, that's not a very compelling thing, right? But if somebody could come down Newcore Road, 32, and hit Comfort Drive, go right across Purple Heart to the south side, that changes everything. And those are the kinds of things we're thinking about in this future growth.
Yeah, and something that the city and county, Tom, you kind of alluded to this, you're working on an alignment study. What does that look like, and how does that play into everything that we're doing here?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. If you look at where the growth's happening, there's so much growth happening already on the south side. There's so much growth potential and already happening in that new core corridor. we have to think about how we connect those two things. I mean, that's
Mhm.
just what has to happen. And so, with what the county's doing with that new core road overpass project, we should probably have Tom on do an update on that. But, once that's in place, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And we have to think about how we make these connections. And like I said earlier, in this community, we've been really bad at that because we've just kind of let it happen, and then nothing really matches up and lines up.
Right.
And I mean, look around the city at some of these neighborhoods that just, there's a neighborhood right next to it that doesn't match up, and nothing's connected, and
Mhm.
nothing makes any sense. So we're trying to get out ahead of it and be proactive, and this really does put us on that path. And I think Brandy talked about the trail piece. That's important too. As you go building a lot of houses in that area, which we think is going to happen, you have to have connectivity from a pedestrian standpoint into our trail system and our park system. And this really puts us in a good position to do that, because now we'll have the trail across there.
Right.
We just have to make the connections on each end.
Yeah.
And that'll be, in the grand scheme of things, fairly easy to do.
Awesome. Well, this is, a wonderful opportunity for our community, and it really has happened pretty quickly. And I think, people will look forward to seeing what,
Yeah, go drive it, check it out. It's a different
check it out.
perspective when you drive it across there. And there's just a lot of potential. You look at all the fields around there, there's a lot of potential there. And this doesn't by any means say, well, we're not, looking at growth on the other sides of our city. We are, but this is one piece that we had to check off the list.
Right.
Also, just one note too, when people drive on it, they're going to see there's still some work that needs to be done. So
Right.
we got to do some curb work and some other stuff. So as you're driving, please be careful, because we will have crews out there still working. So just be careful when you're driving through there.
Yeah, especially at the intersection of 231. There's still some work to be done with moving. We had some utilities. This seems to be a recurring theme, but some utilities that haven't
Yeah.
gotten off of the line. So a little bit of delay in that portion of the project. So the traffic pattern will be a little different at the intersection until we can get that all figured out. But that's a good point.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you all would like to add?
I guess I can do an update on the Nucor overpasses. You
Yeah,
mentioned
sure.
that. So just to remind everyone, we did receive a state grant of $16 million for a $20 million project to build an overpass on Nucor Road over 136. And so we're still going through the state permitting process for that, but the goal is design is about 95% done. The funding from the state is for summer of 2026. So
Okay.
that's when we intend to have that project started, and it's going to take about 14 to 16 months.
Okay. So be looking for that. It's crazy that we're talking about 2026. And
Yeah, and that's just so important. If you know that area, those trucks have to come down that hill and then go
Mhm.
back up the next side, and all the traffic. I forget the number of semis that come through there a day. It's a really high number between Nucor and everything that's out there. And I've seen recently here a number of accidents coming through in that intersection. I'm thinking that can't come soon enough, because
Right.
they continue to have accidents there. So, yeah.
okay. Well, thank you all for the update. Hopefully people get out there, check it out, and we'll see some things popping up around there fairly
Yeah.
soon. And
Great leverage already funds.
yes,
To use those regional economic development funds to do something like this is really, if the city and the county had to pay this solely on their own, it would have been I'm not sure to happen. It would have been a tough
Right.
climb. But to leverage those ready funds makes things like this possible.
that's awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for listening. As always, we've got Yodel, our community connections calendar, and you can find everything in one easy, convenient location. And if you have topics or things you'd like to hear about, feel free to reach out and let us know. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on this podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you aren't already, follow us on Facebook at City of Crawfordsville Official, on Twitter at City of Seaville, and on Instagram at City of Crawfordsville. We hope you have a wonderful day and can't wait for you to join us next week.